My name is Father Paul Check. I'm a priest of the Diocese of Bridgeport, Connecticut, and I'm very grateful for your presence today, early in the holy season of Advent, to hold what I trust I very much want to be a fruitful conversation for you in your parish ministry. I know, because I give a lot of these kinds of presentations and talks to clergy, that one of the things that goes through the mind of priests, maybe deacons are not so suspicious, I don't know, and that is to say, well, you know, Father, who are you, where did you come from, how did you get here, and why are you talking with us this morning? And that's a fair question. I'm a parish priest by training, by love, by experience, but one day I received a letter in the mail. Dear Father Check, we don't have a Courage apostolate in our diocese. I would be very grateful if you started one. Sincerely yours in Christ, your bishop. And that was the letter. And that's how it started. So sometimes, Bishop, those letters work, and they get the attention of the recipient. I'm very grateful I received that letter, because this ministry, of which I've been a part now for 10 years, has done a lot to transform my understanding of priestly life, of clerical life, and of the gospel. And I hope that we can share something of that with you today. The Courage apostolate begins in the heart of one of the shepherds, one of the successors of the apostles, Terence Cardinal Cook, servant of God, in 1980. And Cardinal Cook had the sense that even at that time, and this is going back over 30 years, the perception on the part of many people, to include many Catholics, with regard to the question of homosexuality, was that the Catholic Church has nothing to offer to people on this topic except the word no. And he wanted to change that and to indicate that the fullness of the gospel applies to this question, and there's always, wherever there is a no to something that would cause us to step away from Christ, there's always a much larger yes. So the Cardinal had a conversation with Father Benedict Groeschel and said, I would like to begin something here in the Archdiocese of New York, a ministry, a practical ministry, to men and women with the homosexual inclination, to know that they are in the heart of the church, that they are loved by Christ, and that it is possible for them, with God's grace, not only to live the virtue of chastity, but to live a fulfilled Christian life, because they are sons and daughters of our Father in heaven and disciples of Jesus Christ. So Father Groeschel said, well, this is not my specialty per se, but I do know a man who has been working in this field for many years. His name is Father John Harvey. He is an oblate of St. Francis de Sales, and I would like to introduce him to you. And from that meeting then came the beginning of the Courage Apostolate. 7 men met in Lower Manhattan in 1980, and themselves, under the direction of Father Harvey and Cardinal Cook, formulated the goals of courage, which are really embedded deeply in the gospel. Chastity and prayer and the sacraments and self-giving, fellowship, to walk with one another in the gospel, something our current Holy Father speaks about, accompaniment, very important. Authentic, chaste friendships that build up the person in Christ, giving good example to one another, and to help each other to strive to reach heaven. So the goals of courage there are really nothing that none of us, no matter what our circumstances and background might be, wouldn't embrace and recognize as something important to holiness of life. From that first meeting, the Courage Apostolate has spread to, we think, about half the dioceses of the United States and a dozen, maybe 15 countries overseas. In January, I'm going to Singapore and Hong Kong, for instance, not as on vacation or something like that, but at the invitation of the bishops there for the same kind of thing that we're doing here today. Now, there are many different ways to look at the question of homosexuality to try to find answers that will be of practical assistance. And so what we want to do in these few hours is to offer you those perspectives that I hope will give you some insight and understanding, and then lead you in the direction of an authentic pastoral response to the souls that are under your care. Many years ago, Father Harvey, who was my immediate predecessor in this job as the director of the apostolate, told me that our best ambassadors are our members. In other words, the men and women who have the homosexual attraction and who have found, through the fullness of grace in the gospel, their true identity as they strive with one another to climb that ladder of charity and truth. It doesn't mean that the problem that they address is vanquished, not by any means, but that they have come to a deeper understanding of who they are. So in a moment, we will have a testimonial from one of our members, and I think many of you have had the opportunity to see our movie. Hands, please. Desire of the Everlasting Hills. Okay, if you've not seen it, I think Sister is providing a copy to you. It's also online. It's an hour long, and then there's a 2-minute trailer that can be sent around. And we think it's a very engaging film, easy to watch, 3 stories being told, and in the way, a very soft introduction to a very painful, difficult, controversial topic. So, our members as our ambassadors, and some of you are from different dioceses, and you might be thinking maybe we could do something like this where you're from. Certainly we can, and it would always be helpful to have a Clergy member to come and give a talk. So we're going to have that in just a moment. Secondly, we want to look at this perspective from the standpoint of the psychological sciences, the mental health profession, when it is undergirded with a proper Christian anthropology. Now that's very important, obviously, because there are a lot of different anthropologies, understanding of who man is, but there is really only one that we can be confident in, and that's the one that the Church gives to us. I think the most quoted line from the Second Vatican Council, at least in the pontificate of St. John Paul II, was from Gaudium et Spes. Paragraph 22, Christ, the new Adam, fully reveals man to himself in his most high calling. So that's the subject of Christian anthropology. Who are we in Christ? So that's the foundation then for understanding how the psychological sciences can be of assistance to us. And the documents that guide our work particularly, one is the 1986 document from the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith on the question of homosexuality, and the 2006 document from our Conference of Bishops, Pastoral Care to Men and Women with the Homosexual Inclination, which is a splendid document. They're both very good. 2006 from our conference is very practical, very helpful, and I'll refer to some of that later in the day. Both of them indicate that the psychological sciences, the mental health profession, have a role in pastoral care to help people to know who they are and to live in accordance with their nature and their Christianity, so that some of the struggles that they have can be addressed properly within the light of the gospel and the light of natural reason. So we will have a psychologist who will present to us. And then from your clergy here in Birmingham, we have Deacon Dr. Patrick Lappert, who many of you may already know, and he is an MD, a plastic surgeon. And he is going to give us a very interesting perspective on the questions of gender identity and related questions of transsexualism or transsexuality, which is increasingly becoming a question. It's not the immediate work that we do, but so many people call us now and say, I have a son or a daughter who believes that they should be another sex, and how am I supposed to think about that? Or people call us and say, what to do in this question? And then I want to offer you some thoughts this afternoon about pastoral care and to hear your questions. We want this to be a practical day for you, my brothers. And so I hope that we will be able to achieve that, but you will help us by saying, can you talk to us about this? All right, I'm going to ask our witness speaker to come up. He will be a familiar face to those of you who have seen the film. I met Paul a couple of years ago now in California. Every year I do 3 regional retreats for our people, and one year in California, a gentleman came up to me and said at breakfast, Father, I'd like to talk with you for a few minutes. Do you have some time? And I said, of course I do. And he sat down with me, we had a cup of coffee, and he told me a remarkable story that you are going to hear today. And so I ask you to greet warmly our witness speaker, Paul, who will talk to you about something that he hopes will be a benefit to you and to the souls under your care.